Never in a million years did I figure inheriting a patch of land would feel like inheriting a ticking time bomb. Name's Lucas Kane. 5 years back, my granddad left me a chunk of the Rockies, 150 acres of wild, untamed forest, an old cabin clinging to the side of a ridge like it was holding on for dear life. Wasn't much from the outside. Timber frame, cracked chimney, porch boards that creaked in protest every time I stepped out for air. But inside, that place was sacred. Cedar, smoke, a lifetime of stories carved into every floorboard. It wasn't Chicago. Thank God for that. Out here, I didn't have to think about blueprints, city horns, or neighbors shouting at each other over parking spots. Here, the neighbors were pine trees and deer, and sometimes, just sometimes, a black bear would come sniffing around if I forgot to lock up the trash. Those first summers, I drive up every chance I got, spending long evenings fixing the roof, patching the old fireplace, turning that cabin into something a little less drafty, a little more home. Folks down the mountain had their own slice of paradise. Sierra Heights, a luxury development with lawns so perfect you'd think the grass was imported. Their boundaries were supposed to end at the creek, a good mile or two from my property line. I saw their signs on the main road sometimes, big promises about mountain views, privacy, exclusive living. Good for them, I figured. I'd rather take splinters from my own porch than share a fence with folks who call the HOA over a dandelion. One afternoon, just as the light turned that syrupy gold, a woman showed up at the edge of my woods. Dressed sharp enough to make the trees look underdressed, clicking photos on her phone, making notes on a tablet. Never said a word, just stared at my cabin like she was pricing it out for auction, then vanished as quick as she'd come. Something about her had my hackles up, too polished, too determined. A week later, life in the city ground me down to dust. All I wanted was a night on the mountain, bourbon in hand, watching the sun drop behind those peaks. Pulled up to the cabin, and there it was, a fancy envelope waiting on the porch. Sierra Heights Homeowners Association. That's rich. I nearly laughed myself off the steps. Not part of their club. Never signed up. Never wanted to. My land was grandfathered in before their first mansion went up. Opened the letter, and the polite words stank of threat. Congratulations, your property has been identified as part of the Sierra Heights managed area. Please provide access keys for maintenance and inspection, and, well, you get the idea. Signed by Rachel Bloom, president of their little empire. Maybe it was a clerical mix-up. Maybe someone got carried away with a map and a highlighter. Tried to let it go, but the unease lingered. Then came the next letter, taped to the cabin door, red ink shouting final notice, $500 a day fines, and threats of enforcement measures. I'd seen bureaucratic nonsense before, but this was next level. Fired up my old laptop, managed to get a single bar of service and double-checked the county records. My deed, my name, my boundaries, ironclad. Called the number on the letter. The HOA office lady put me through to Rachel Bloom herself. Her voice, sweet as pie, but hard underneath. Lucas, according to our maps, your parcel's designated for community recreation, shared space. Standard practice. Not my standard, I shot back. Nobody asked me. You got no claim here. She just laughed, the kind that says, oh, you poor, clueless man. Boundaries are fluid up here, Lucas. It's easier if you cooperate. That was the first time I realized I wasn't dealing with a paperwork error. I was in the middle of a quiet land grab. Things escalated. Signs sprouted along my road. Members only, HOA area, private trail. Came back one morning and found a shiny new gate welded shut with a guard parked out front. Said he was with the HOA, told me I needed a pass to access my own property. Called the sheriff. Deputy Rodriguez, a no-nonsense guy with a not-this-again look, walked the line with me, studied my paperwork, then clipped that chain like he was pruning roses. They're trying to build a case, he warned. Take it to court and watch your back. That's when I called Laura, old college friend, now a bulldog of a real estate attorney. She dug through the records and found the HOA had filed a request to annex adjacent open space, my land, without telling me, the county, or anyone else who mattered. Not legal, not approved, just paperwork in a drawer, but enough to muddy the waters. To make it worse, She found my cabin listed on the HOA website as a future community lodge. They were already selling access that didn't exist. So I started documenting every sign, every intrusion, every broken lock on the shed. The theft started, tools, generators, my granddad's canoe. Trail cams went up, then got smashed. Nights on the porch, shotgun across my knees, nerves frayed raw. Laura kept pushing, and eventually a tip came in. Doug, a former HOA board member, was willing to talk. We met in a diner. Doug, jittery, stirring cold coffee, laid it all out. Rachel Bloom had redrawn the maps herself, promised the developer my parcel, spun tales for the board about an absentee owner who just needed some persuasion. Emails, meeting notes, the whole ugly mess. Doug agreed to testify. Court was a circus. Rachel's lawyer tried to paint me as some cranky old hermit, resistant to community spirit. Laura laid out every record, every video, every email. Doug took the stand, hands trembling, but his words landed hard. Rachel Bloom orchestrated the campaign. Fraud, harassment, trespass, all of it. The judge didn't need long. It is abundantly clear, he said, voice like stone, that the property is privately owned by Mr. Kane. The HOA's conduct constitutes willful misconduct, trespass, vandalism, harassment. He dropped the gavel on a permanent injunction. No one from the HOA could so much as sneeze in my direction. $750,000 in damages. Referred Rachel Bloom to the district attorney for criminal charges. You could feel the room suck in a collective breath. Walking out of that courthouse, I just wanted quiet, and that's what I got. The mountain went still, the signs came down, the fake gates disappeared, and the only thing left was a battered old cabin and a stubborn fool who refused to give up what mattered. Took a while for the nerves to settle. But after a month of silence, no more trespassers, no more threats, I finally let my guard down. Invited Laura, Doug, a few close friends up for a bonfire. We laughed, swapped war stories, and Doug toasted to stubborn men and their mountains. Rachel Bloom, last we heard, was fighting off fraud charges and couldn't get elected to run a lemonade stand, let alone an HOA. When the guests left, I walked the land in the dark, flashlight tracing the old trails. The spray paint scars faded from the cabin walls, but I could still see the ghosts of every fight. Stopped at the pond, listened to an owl call out, let the quiet fill me. On the gate, I bolted up a new sign, private property. Welcome, friends. Not a threat, just a promise to protect what matters. Poured myself one last bourbon, settled in the rocking chair my granddad loved. Stars above, mountain air around me. Sometimes to protect what's yours, you have to be the wolf, not the sheep. That's the thing nobody tells you about standing your ground. It isn't about winning some prize. It's about not letting folks rewrite the story of who you are or where you belong, just because they think they can. That line, the one between community and conquest, gets mighty blurry when there's money, power, or pride on the table. So here's where I leave you. When does protecting your own patch of earth become stubbornness? And when does it become survival? Should paperwork and power be enough to take what someone's bled for? Where would you draw the line? Drop your stories down below. Tell me what justice looks like to you, because this fight's older than any cabin, any deed, any name on a mailbox. And it sure as hell isn't over yet.
Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã xem video.